Welcome. We're here to talk about the essay. And I imagine that even just as I say that, there is a serious amount of confusion or frustration or even anger that you literally hate the idea of the essay. I imagine that that's possible. In fact, I've even felt that way myself. Often in high school when asked to write essays, or even in university when I thought about writing essays, the thought would literally get to me. You won't be alone if you're a student coming into this video thinking this is the worst thing ever. But here's the hope. I hope that the essay can be something different. My wish for you is that you can write an essay that you enjoy, that you feel good about, and that you believe is true. And that I can read that same essay. And if we can somehow come to that world, I think we're both going to be more happy. The essay that we're comfortable with, the essay that we've been taught, is the 5-paragraph essay. The way it works is you have an introduction that ends with a thesis statement. You have 3 paragraphs, each one explaining one argument. And usually the way it works is that each argument kind of works on its own and explains the thesis in some way. And then finally you have a conclusion, which is just a summary of those points. And so what inevitably happens is we create a thesis statement and then we plug in whatever 3 arguments we want. And of course the process seems contrived. Of course it seems ridiculous and we don't enjoy it. I'm going to be basing this lecture on a book by Scott Kreider called The Art of Rhetoric for the Academic Essay. In that book, Kreider says we need to be done with the 5-paragraph essay. And rather than just jumping into what he says, I want to give you a couple of different analogies. The first analogy, I often get my classes to build these towers. I say, everybody gets 5 books, and I take books off of the shelf we have here, and I say, you need to build a tower that is as high as possible, that's as creative as possible, and that has as much structural integrity as possible, that's as solid as possible. And in groups, students start, and they've only got 2 minutes, and so they're going wild, and they're trying to make these towers, and inevitably we get these cool tower. So if you've got 10 books, maybe they're stacked really high, or maybe one group has a lot of structural integrity, but they've got some creative way that the books are sitting. And then I change the assignment and I say, okay, now I want you to do the same 3 things. I want it to be high and creative and solid, and yet I want it to also fit inside a shoebox. And so I say, go. And suddenly the work becomes a little bit more monotonous. There's a sense of confusion. The books are usually just kind of stacked in a pile because that's all you can do to make them fit in a shoebox. And the amount of creativity that comes from these towers is incredibly limited. And then we sit down and I say, listen, the 5-paragraph essay is like this shoebox. You are being asked for creativity. You're being asked to come up with this incredible idea, and somehow you got to fit it into 5 paragraphs, 3 points, and a thesis at the end of your intro. Of course we're upset. Of course we don't care about the essay, and of course we see it as a ridiculous way of communicating. We have to do away with that box. Kreider is going to talk about invention, organization, and style as the 3 ways of engaging with the essay. And he's going to say that they're interconnected, but it's going to be helpful for us to deal with them one at a time. When we're talking about the essay, this video is going to be about invention. We're talking about just the invention of your idea. With the 5-paragraph essay, you start with the form. You start with your 3 different sections, and then you fit an idea into your form. Kreider and I say that's not the way to start. You start with an idea and you fit a form to it. There's this show that I've watched with my wife's little sister every once in a while. It's called Cake Boss. If you're watching the video right now, it might be current. If you're watching the video in a couple years, I'm going to seem like I'm 65. Show's all right. It's about this guy who goes around making these extravagant cakes. And so one of my favorites is these people come to him and they say, hey, we work at a fishery and we want a shark cake. And so he and his buddies get together and they think about what kind of a cake they can make, but they start with their idea. They always start with their idea. They never say, well, what kind of cake boxes do we have? What would fit a cake box? They never do that, and nor should they. You start with an invention. So they say, okay, what if we get this massive shark, and we'll have teeth here, and we'll have like fish guts coming out of the teeth, and we'll have this fin, and it will have like a scar across its side, and they come up with this incredible cake. Then they build it, and afterwards they worry about how they're going to transport it. You need to transport your idea to your reader. Inevitably, the idea that's in your head needs to get to me, needs to get to your classmates, needs to get to your reader in some way. And that's going to be your form. In the past, that's been 5 paragraphs, but it's way too limiting. It's a terrible form, and we don't want to start with that. We want to start with invention. We want to start with your idea. Why do we need a different box? Because when we're making this cake, when we're making this incredible essay, this idea, we need to have the passion to find the idea first, not just the knowledge of a form that we're going to fit the idea into. We need to have a different box. And so when we talk about organization in the next video, I'm going to suggest not a formal structure in the way the 5-paragraph essay is, but maybe a broader way of writing an essay that's going to allow you some freedom. So as you're thinking about invention, remember that we're going to have a different box. We're not going to have the same kind of box that we've had before, and there's going to be freedom for you and your idea. Part of the reason for that is that form is content. Hopefully we've been talking about that all through short story and poetry, that form is content, that the way you write something, the way an author puts forward his poem is its content. Those two things can't be removed. When we talk about the 5-paragraph essay, the structure of 3 points is going to say something to your reader about your argument. And maybe that's not what you want. We're going to find a form that perfectly fits your content, that says what you want it to say. The question is, how do you find an idea? In the past, you've probably started with your thesis. That's a really bad idea. Don't just start by writing a thesis. That's quite possibly impossible. You want to start with a mind map. Now, this is just one strategy. There's lots. Really, what you want to be doing is thinking about ideas, thinking about what are you intrigued by. When you look at a text, when you look at a film, whatever it is that you're going to be writing on, what is it that intrigues you most? And just start by writing that down. So, for instance, if I'm doing a mind map here, I'm gonna start with an idea. The first thing that I can think about when it comes to my text. And then from there, I'm going to start thinking of things that are related. I'm going to start thinking of things that are related to that idea, and it's going to be messy, and there's going to be stuff all over, and there's going to be arrows going here, and then there's this whole corner of your paper will be filled, and the bottom will be empty, and that's totally fine. It should be a messy process. It should be a process where you're just throwing down everything that you're intrigued by, and hopefully you start to say, somewhere in here, I see something of value. Something in here, I see something of value. Maybe you've started with the story A Dog for Rock. And the thing that's most intriguing to you is the idea of friendship. And so your idea at the beginning is friendship. And maybe you're thinking, in one sense, friendship is between a man and an animal. And what does that look like? What is the difference between a friendship between 2 people and a man and an animal? And maybe in another sense, you're thinking about the religious connotations of that. So here, you're thinking, well, is God befriending Rock? And maybe over here, you're thinking about the role of the narrator. Is he befriending the kids around him? He sees Rock and thinks of him as someone to be emulated. Is that something that is he correct, or is he an unreliable narrator? You'll have all these different directions. Ideally, one of them is going to kind of come forward. That you're going to find one area of your idea intrigues you the most, and that it starts to lend itself to an argument. The closer you get in your idea to an argument, the closer you're getting to really having that kernel that's going to begin your essay. When we look at organization, we're going to define exactly what a thesis is and exactly what an argument is. But first, I want you right now to get out a fresh piece of paper, think about the text that you're writing your essay on, and start to mind map an idea. Don't think about putting that into 3 points. Don't think about what the structure might be. Just think about a really cool idea, something that you think is true, something that you think is worth reading, something that intrigues you, and something that you think will intrigue your reader. I look forward to hearing about your ideas.